Welcome back to Gems with Genesis Amaris Kemp. With me today is Rose Kaz, and she is the organization Lady Boss International CEO and founder, connecting women globally to one another so we can glow this place up and smash the patriarchy. Have you heard about the feminist staff Facebook? That's hashtag, y'all, the hashtag Lady Boss LinkedIn, or maybe hashtag matriarchal MySpace. This is what we are building on the Lady Boss International Backstage Pass. So Rose has quite a bit of things that she is doing on the forefront as well as behind the scenes. But without further ado, please welcome Rose Cass to the platform.
Thank you so much, Genesis. I'm so thrilled to be here and just appreciate you sharing your platform with me.
My pleasure. So let's jump into why is connecting women globally so important to you, and how did that lead you to starting LBI?
Yes, thank you for that question. It's important to me because I myself realized that I can only go so far alone. And this was about 2017, I was 3 years into my business, into my production company. I make photo and video for women-owned business and brands. And I was like, okay, I have the hard skills, but the soft skills, like, I don't really want to do it like I was taught by all these old white guys. And, thank you for the skills, the hard skills, photo skills I learned on film and adapting to digital world. So that stuff, like, I'm good with. But like how I organize myself and my team and how I do business, I felt like I didn't really want to learn from the guys. And so I started asking women, literally polling the audience, phoning friends and saying, hey, ladies, like, what do you think about this? Right. And then fast forward the tape to 2020, I'm like, okay, I really need to lean into community more. I really want to talk to these lady bosses that I had been fostering relationships for the last 3 or 4 years as I built my business. But of course, as we know, during COVID in the beginning stages last winter, we had to be inside, like all inside, right? And I really started thinking, man, this is going to be really dark and really sad unless I lean into that community again, just like I did 3 years ago, 4 years ago, however many years it was prior. And as such, I started thinking about how I could connect further outside of my immediate, space, outside of my immediate Rolodex with women in business, and to hear how they also need community and they also need to lean into each other. And that's like really vulnerable, right? Not just for me, but for other women to say, hey, you know what? I don't exactly know the answer to this, but I bet you do, Lady Boss. And so as such, we developed the LBI Backstage Pass, a platform built by women for women so that we can really lean into each other with these questions about growing our businesses, whether we work as entrepreneurs in our own businesses or as entrepreneurs in other people's businesses, or even if you're the CEO of your family. That's a full-time job, Lady Boss, for sure.
And how did you come up with the name Lady Boss International? Was it something that just dropped down in your spirit, or did you have like a mind mapping session to kind of brainstorm what you wanted the name to be called? Or was it like, you know what? I'm a lady, I'm a boss, and I want to take it international. Was it that easy, or walk us through how you came up with it?
I actually really love how you said that last part where you're like, I'm a lady, I'm a boss, let's do this. I mean, that's basically what happened. That's pretty much what happened. I started having these conversations with myself and then with other people. And I was like, she's a lady, she's a boss, I'm a lady, I'm a boss, let's do this. So that's pretty much it. I wish it was like really calculated, because a lot of stuff I do is really calculated, but it's the stuff that really sticks is the stuff that's just like, where'd that come from?
So another question here. When you think about the men that trained you, those hard skills, have you tried to tap in with their wives to see if they could benefit from LBI Backstage Pass? Because behind every male is a phenomenal woman who is leading him, because we all know that men cannot do things on their own in a sense, because I'm a wife and there are certain things that I help my husband with, even though sometimes he may feel like I am stepping on his toes. But whenever he realizes the other parts that I'm bringing to complement him, that we're doing it in partnership, he's like, ah, all right, babe, I see where you're going. And I said, hey, if I'm knocking, let me in.
That is brilliant, Lady Boss. I love that. No, I haven't thought about reaching out. A lot of those guys, I honestly am not even sure where they're at this point, because this has been, 10, 12 years ago when I was learning my hard skills. But your point is super valid, I should say. And your point is super valid because behind every man is definitely a great woman or five, like their mothers, their wives, probably maybe sometimes even their daughters saying, excuse me, I think you're going to need a little help with this. Nonetheless, I also want to point to something that is an underlying thought there in your point, is that, this is the platform LBI Backstage Pass, and what we're doing with Ladyboss International is not in any way to say like men are terrible. We do mention, smashing the patriarchy. That's because that system, that organization, that sort of pyramid structure doesn't really suit a lot of us, most of us actually. And so while I appreciated the skills that I learned living in the patriarchy, of the patriarchy being within it, I think there are so many other skills that can be explored and developed further when we lean into our feminine side. And women obviously have feminine sides. We have very robust feminine sides, and so do men, right? And in our makeup, we have masculine traits as women as well. And so what I'm learning with my own business is, when is it important to hustle and be really like strong-armed about like doing the thing, and when it's really good to lean back and let the inspiration come in and let the ideas flow in, and also be open to the variety of experiences that can happen when we are alive, when we are working in business, when we are being a wife, when we are being a boss, when we are working for another company, right? And so being open to really expounding on our experience as humans and leaning into those strong-willed sides and those softer sides.
Yes, because everything in life requires a balance, and you have to have a healthy balance in order for you not just to survive, but for you to thrive. And think about when you first launch your business, the production company, and then think about when you first launch Lady Boss International Backstage Pass. What were the struggles that you faced, and how did those struggles help catapult you to where you are now? And you'll understand why I'm asking this question.
Your questions are so good, Genesis. Thank you. Thank you. This is something I've been having to remind myself when I wake up pretty regularly lately, because we just launched the Backstage Pass in October. We started softly and quietly in September, and then the official big like come backstage happened just last month. And so really we're like newborns. This platform, this business, this type of working for me and my team is very, very new. And I'm the type of personality that I'm like, I have the idea, let's do it, it's happening. And it takes a while, as we know, with any seed. Once we plant it, it does not become a tree overnight, unfortunately or fortunately, because the whole process of it growing is part of the experience. And so the difference between launching this platform and starting my production company, the production company, and it's still going, right? It's pivoted substantially because of COVID, but also that was like, okay, oh wow, well, okay, now we're going to shift. Oh wow, let me do this. But it felt like it was a longer drawn out, like a longer experience. Whereas this launch, this propelling this thing, we keep calling it, we're saying we've put it into the atmosphere because we're building an app with this platform. And it feels so much more almost combustible in a way, but in a good way, where it's like so much in such a quick time. There's so much more preparation and tech and getting the message out and making sure people are aware of what we're doing. Whereas in the previous incarnation of my business, it was like, okay, we're kind of going to keep going. We're going to keep pedaling faster and faster. Okay, we're going to slow down. And it's the same thing in this launch, but it's exponentially more intense. So it's like faster, faster, slow, faster, faster, slow. And I'm like, oh my God, this is bananas, but I'm here for it. This is the work that I'm here to do. And so, balancing my and my team's personal well-being, health, sleep, water. I have 3 different types of fluids around me, no alcohol, just being really grounded in the intention is important no matter what tempo we're going at. That's a great question. Thank you.
And it's so important that we highlight that question, because in life we face struggles. And especially if you are that 9 to 5 employee, but you've left your job, or your job has left you, whether you left on your own, whether you were furloughed, whether you were laid off, or whether it was no longer a good fit, and you're now tapping into the E bucket, which is the entrepreneurship bucket, you're going to face struggles and things aren't always going to come easily and naturally as you expect it to be, because you were on the outside looking into what somebody else was doing, not necessarily on the inside looking outwards. And you feel like, okay, maybe this is not working out, when sometimes you have to remind yourself that the struggles come to make us stronger. And I like to tell my coaching clients is that we all go through this roller coaster ride and it's called life. There's always going to be ups and downs. There's going to be upside downs. There's going to be
Mhm.
roundabouts, twists and turns, and etc. But if you stay on for the ride, you'll understand why you had to go through some of the lows in order to reach the excitement points. And it's not always easy. It's not always conducive, but there is always a message that you get out of the mess. And the word message has the word mess in it. So that's one thing to be mindful of. And I'm glad that uh you elaborated that, sometimes it's go, 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 then slow down. Go, 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 then slow down. And it's almost like if we're driving a car, sometimes we're going at a fast pace. But then if you're using Waze or Google, it's the object in the road up ahead. So what do you have to do? You have to slow down so you don't hit that object in the road, or pothole up ahead, railroad crossing, or whatever the case may be. So it's just like when we're going through our personal life and our professional life. And when you think about some of the bosses that are working on your team to help you form Ladyboss International Backstage Pass, what was your rhyme and reason for picking the ladies that you built partnerships with? Because sometimes we as women can find it hard to really pick another woman to work with because there's that comparison factor instead of the compliment factor.
Oh my gosh, another fabulous question, Genesis. So, in fact, last night I was in a room with another woman who's doing a very similar thing, building a platform for women by women, slightly different demographic, slightly different, I like to say same mission, different copy. And I had to take a week off of social last week because I had hit the tech wall. I needed some personal space for rest and recuperation. And so I was like, oh, she's having a room. I have to pop by and support her. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. A lot of people would say we're competition, but I love that you keep showing up because you really believe in community. So my first and foremost, and it's not just saying like, yeah, girl, community over competition. It's like, yes, every stinking day, every glorious day, no matter if it's good or bad, showing up in that trueness and not just saying, yeah, like all together now, and then actually being like, see you back. Right. And so the genuine nature of really caring about all of us. And that comes from the standard of a woman-led world is going to be better for everyone. Your earlier point at the top of the show, like telling your husband, well, you can't let me just help you with that. He's like, okay, I see you here, right? Because when women have more support and autonomy and hold the keys to their car and their purse and all that stuff, it is better for everyone around. And so those are the standards of which when I'm looking to collaborate, when I'm looking to hire, when I'm even looking at myself in the mirror, like, are you doing okay? Are we doing this? And I love this question also because what our theme is every month with LBI, we have a theme. And the theme for this month is core values. And we have 5 core values with Ladyboss International. It's to collaborate, elevate, and inspire with women all over the world in the most inclusive and diverse ways that we can possibly do. And if we're not doing those 5 things every day, then we're not doing it. And I don't mean one of those 5 or 2 of those 5 or 3 of those 5. No, all of those 5 and all of them. And so that's comprehensive. And that's a lot of like rubbing and patting and going on and on. But that's my checklist for myself personally. And that's why this brand is my next biz baby, because I care so much about these 5 things. And so our theme this month is to ask all of the women we're working with, whether they're contributors on the Backstage Pass, they have storefronts and they're selling, their courses, their one-on-ones, their retreats. We're testing a little product there. We'll talk about that later. Or if they're people who are working with me on my team, or just in this case, like interviewing as we're doing here, like making sure that that's in line with those core values. So part of our challenge this month for our team, as well as for our audience and our community, is to do a 1-minute video that says, okay, here's my core values, whether it's as yourself or as your business. This is what I stand for. Because what I realized when I was digging into my personal core values, I was like, wait, what do I stand for? And as we know, with 2020, there was a lot of opportunity to to go inside, to look inside, and to come up with what we really care about, right? And like, this time in our world, I think, is so monumental because we have the opportunity to take a different direction, to really stand up for what is right, which is humanity, which is humans counting, each human counting as a human being, right? And also that putting our money where our mouth is, so that those values actually affect social change versus like, yeah, I'm going to the march, or yeah, I voted for so and so, or yeah, these are all important ways to show up. But the biggest thing that will change any of the things that we see as inequities in the world is where we spend our money. Right. And so that's what our challenge about core values. Each of my team, we're going to do a video within the next 5 days. You'll start seeing it pop up on our social, saying what our individual core values are. And we're going to ask people, hey, send us a video. We want to hear from you, Genesis. What's your core value? What do you do in your home? What's your core value in your business? We want to know, because this story that we share, this narrative that we want to hear as important, I think it's a little vulnerable to share it, but I think it becomes super important as we think about doing things differently.
I like that because what I was hearing as you were speaking, transparency, authenticity, uniqueness, true, because you have to be true to yourself, and once you're true to yourself, you're true to your business. Realness. People
Mhm.
don't need any more carbon copies. We need people who are real. We also need people who know what humanity means, not just what they see, but what it means. And how is that evident to you internally? How does it resonate with your heart? Because sometimes our heartstrings can easily be pulled. And we also need to know, how are you running your business? Because if you're not running your business based on what you believe and what your core values are, what your mission statement is, and etc., then your business is going to eventually fall apart because you are not walking it like you're talking it. And each one of us has something different to say and to add, but it's very vital once we understand who we are. Because once we know who we know how we can be effective, we know how we can implement, we know how we can leave an imprint in order to drive an impact, to be the world changers that we want to see. And as women, we're multifaceted. And if you think about women in comparison to males, one thing that I heard is like, men are like waffles, they like to compartmentalize. Women are like noodles. We are stringy and we're so interwoven because we're multifaceted and multidimensional. But we have to communicate that outwardly, because sometimes when people see us women in multiple lanes, they like to compartmentalize us when we weren't meant to be in a box. We weren't born in a box. So why the hell are you placing us in a box? So it's time for us to rise up and take our rightful place and stop asking for permission.
Hell yeah, girl. 100%.
So when you think about LBI Backstage Pass and you think about how you are connecting women globally, how do you ensure that you are meeting women outside of the US? Because sometimes cultures are different and we may want to articulate something, but it may be abrasive to their culture.
Mm, wonderful, wonderful thought and question. You know, it's again pointing back to the name where I was like, well, I'm a lady, I'm a boss, we're about to go international. Easy, easy, until you start really thinking about those deep questions of like, what might be presumed as too much or not enough, or like, oh my goodness, and why did she say that, or how did she say that, right? And so our job on this platform, my team and myself, and I would say for that matter, the community, right? Like sort of like your neighborhood, right? Like there is the community watch that I'm going to get ahead of myself here because I had this idea during COVID that wouldn't it be cool if like we didn't actually need the police, that the community would be like, hey, you know what? Come on, man, we're not doing it like that, right? And like we have this internal structure of caring so much for each other that maybe violence would go down and people would intrinsically be better and do better. It's just a thought. I know that's maybe a little, we're a little past that, maybe, I don't know, but nonetheless, within the community that I'm building, it's important that we make sure that it feels safe for everyone. So part of that is creating boundaries as to like who may come back there. I've heard a lot of people say, well, why can't men come back here? Maybe that's not fair. I'm like, well, it hasn't been very fair for a long time. And what I'm trying to do is get the ladies to where the men are, right? And all the ladies, not just the white ladies, because we saw that before when suffragettes came through and said, yeah, well, okay, I guess just for the white ladies. And no, we're not doing it like that anymore, right? And so I want to make sure that this space feels very welcome for anybody who identifies as a woman from any part of the world. Now, there is a simple barrier called language that might be preventative. And so my goal is that we'll have, much like Clubhouse has done recently, where you can select what language, one of my community managers the other day was like, oh, I went into the Gmail and it was all in Italian. Did you do that? And I was like, oh, you know what? I didn't, but one of our team members previously was from Italy, or still is from Italy, who worked with us for the founding couple months and had started some of the Gmail products up for us. So it naturally was in Italian. And I was like, thank you for reminding me of that, because that is a goal that we want to be. I mean, we're not quite Google yet. We're not even quite Clubhouse yet, but having the opportunity to make, when you're on the platform, to choose your language, having that access point, I think is super important. I'm part of another app development team on accessibility for people that have, maybe vision or audio access points that are, less accessible. And so that's something that's at the forefront of this platform, is that we make sure that people can see, they can hear, they can feel the way that the platform is going and growing. The language thing is something that's on top of mind, but then also your point of culturally, right? Like, let's say that everyone back there can speak English and is able to use whatever supplemental application to be on the platform. Still, there can be conversations or topics, let's say, for example, sex. Like, not every culture is going to want to participate in a conversation about sex, although there's no way we could have gotten here without sex. That's also real. And so what I've loved in that particular context is having women from different cultures represented in conversations that may be taboo. One of my favorite conversations we hosted on the Backstage Pass was a Muslim woman, a Catholic woman, and myself, I'm a Jewish woman, and a Christian woman. All were talking about sex. And I loved it. It got super fiery. It had so many different components and gave different experiences of these different women at different ages as well. And so that's my hope with this platform, is that we get to have a safe place to hear and to share different ideas and views on taboo topics, and on like regular topics that maybe people don't think are taboo. And maybe some people think sex isn't taboo, but it's going to be a variation of your experience in the culture you're from.
I like that you are thinking about that, because it's so vital, especially whenever we begin to travel across international waters, because we have to let women from all regions know that you do have a rightful place, and we are going to accept you in this community. We're going to listen to your feedback and etc. And the reason why I asked that question is because I am first generation American. My dad was South American and my mom is Caribbean. And so whenever you see different cultures and you mesh those cultures, you have to be able to adapt to various cultures, especially depending how you were raised. And since I am first generation American, I think differently in comparison to some of my cousins, because I was raised in the US, even though my parents are foreigners. So that's one thing to be mindful of. And I like that you picked out different ladies and y'all establish what does sex mean from the different backgrounds that you guys came from, which is, a personal topic to some. And some people prefer to just discuss that with their intimate partner, but you brought it to the forefront so you could hear things from different perspectives and vantage points. And I also like the fact that you said that you are mindful of how the app can be seen by people in the ADA community. How can they hear it? How can they see it? How can they feel it? And one thing that I would suggest, if you have not tried it, is maybe you could beta test it with people who are in the ADA community and ask them, what are some things that you wish certain apps would have, and how can we implement those things so you can feel included? We can have that equity there, and we could have the equality there, because we all know whenever we think about disabilities, there are physical disabilities as well as invisible disabilities, but we don't go around asking people, hey, do you have a disability? Because that's not cool. So whenever we think about DE&I, diversity, inclusion, and equity, we also have to think about equality as well, because a lot of people forget about the other E, which I like to call them E squared. Equity plus equality. And as we begin to wind down, Rose, what's next for LBI? Do you have any merchandise or swag that you're promoting? And then we'll close out this segment by you letting my listeners and viewers know once again who you are, how they could connect with you, and then your CTA, which is call to action.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Genesis. Well, most certainly we are changing the gold standard, which is why I'm rocking this hat, because like I said, a women-run world is going to be a better world for everyone. And so the goal of the LBI Backstage Pass is that we're going to do business differently. We are doing business differently. And so if you're interested to come backstage, please do get in touch with me. I'll share a little bit more about how you can do that. I'm sure Genesis will have wonderful show notes. We also have some awesome, we've got these hats, part of our swag. We've got yummy sweaters that are, I should actually just be wearing this because it's so warm, but let's glow backstage, Lady Boss. And it's got some, little Ladyboss International swag on the back. And my personal favorite, because I run hot, I'm a low radiator. I got this cute little lighter pink. Let's glow this place up. And then for those who like a little bit more of an athletic vibe to their swag, this is like a cropped hoodie, right? Where you glowing, Lady Boss? It's got a great little hoodie. It's kind of short, comes up like, I don't know, it's cropped, but I like it because feels good to let my curves show sometimes, but you got to be in the mood for that. So all those yummy things, you can check us out on Instagram, slide into our DMs at LBI_backstage. But I'd really love for you to come backstage, and that you'll find the link. I'm sure Genesis will put it in the show notes, but you'll go to ladybossinternational.club, and then you click on Backstage Pass. You can see the beautiful details on what we're doing there and how we're glowing. And actually, this is kind of hot off the press. My team and I just decided this morning. We will be actually extending our membership free until January 9th, 2021. And so we had offered that to the purveyors, to the women in business who had storefronts, because we wanted to show them that this is a different way to advertise and a different way to do business. And so those women who are on the beta program there are already on a free membership. And we just decided, let's do that for the common, consumer who might be coming back and saying like, well, I don't have a storefront yet, but I want to see what's going on. So basically from this day forward through January 9th, 2022, we will be offering a free membership. So that means it won't cost. We're doing this differently. And I also think it's really important to note the top news story in the last week or so. Our friends over at Facebook, Mr. Zuckerberg went ahead and changed his name because, they've been getting some bad press and they're trying to disassociate with that. And well, what I'd like to just say, I'd like to end on, we are #MoreThanMeta, and we are doing things very different than some of the social media built by men for men, because this is built by women for women. So I'll be excited to have you backstage, Lady Bosses. And Genesis, thank you again for having me and all of your smart and wonderful and just thorough questions. So good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose. And for you listeners and viewers of Gems with Genesis Amaris Kemp, you just heard Rose Cass with LBI, which is Ladyboss International Backstage Pass. All of her contact information will be in the show notes. And I want to leave you all with this quote by Babe Ruth. Never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. And the reason why I want to say that is because sometimes we as women can be fearful. But I want you to know that if you flip the script on fear, you can face everything and rise. Or faith is equivalent to overcoming fear, because when you have faith, you're believing in
Mm.
things that you hope for, yet things that you have not seen. And that is going to counteract and trump fear. And fear is just a mindset that conditions you, but also tries to limit you. And I want you all to soar high like eagles, spread your wings and fly. And don't worry about those chickens or those things that aren't conducive, because eagles are always going to soar high. So I want you to open your arms and ask yourself, am I dreaming big enough? Am I going wide enough? Because if your dreams don't scare you, that means you're playing it too small. It's time for you to step outside of your comfort zone and achieve the things that you are destined for. And until we chat next time, peace, love, and lots of blessings. Share this segment with somebody. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on all audio platforms and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Gems with Genesis Amaris Kemp. Love y'all.